What's really happening in Nigeria? Allegations of religious genocide, kidnappings for ransom, and violent clashes between farmers and herders. To an outsider, Nigeria appears to be a nation in flames. But what's the real story? The country is on the brink of one of the most significant economic transformations of the modern era. A new refinery coming online, reduced dependence on the US dollar, potential alignment with BRICS nations, and Chinese investments exceeding $21 billion in infrastructure, energy, and manufacturing. So, why does negative news about Nigeria dominate the headlines? To understand Nigeria today, we look back to the country created by the British in 1914. The British colonial administration grouped more than 300 ethnic groups speaking roughly 500 different languages. For many local communities, Nigeria as a political entity does not mean much. Ethnic minorities frequently clash with major ethnic groups for political power concentrated at the center.
Best example of the is distrust is, or rather the failure of government is this distrust. The more governance fails, the more people look for a reason. And the easiest reason you'll find is to apportion earnings. I also think politicians have not helped matters. They weaponize violence, and in weaponizing violence, they look for identities. So if you are Hausa or Muslim, or if you are Biro or Christian, or if you are whatever tribe, you find a reason to unite your people together. And once there is a difference and you want to take advantage of that difference, you highlight those differences. So leading to further mistrust.
Think I have five major reasons, to my humble opinion, on why this issue is happening. First, it started since time immemorial with the amalgamation of the Northern and the Southern Protectorate in 1914 by Dugat. And secondly, it's political, it's pure politics. And my other reason is our politicians are using it as a tool for them because, according to Karl Marx, religion is an opium of the masses, which most of our leaders and our political class are using it in order for them to get into public office. As we approach 2027 election, so things like this may likely happen.
Modern Nigeria is a federation of 36 states and a federal capital territory divided into 6 geographical zones: the Northwest, Northeast, North Central, Southwest, Southeast, and South South. One of the deepest fault lines in the country is fueled by ethnic and religious tensions. While Christianity and Islam are practiced freely nationwide, the North is predominantly Muslim and the South has a larger Christian population. Then came oil, and everything changed. By 1967, Nigeria was producing 600,000 barrels of crude oil per day. In 2025, despite increased output of an estimated 1.7 million barrels per day, corruption, inequality, and failure to allocate economic gains to vulnerable groups leaves many Nigerians wallowing in poverty. The World Bank predicts poverty will rise in Nigeria by 3.6% amid a rapid population growth exceeding 237 million. In the 1960s, agriculture, once the mainstay of the economy, declined dramatically. Agricultural share of the gross national product dropped from 63.4% to 55.6% in just 1 year. Food imports soared, reaching 46.1 million naira by 1965 and climbing ever since. The decline in agriculture destroyed Nigeria's long-term economic independence. The famous groundnut pyramids in Kano, the palm oil plantation in the Bight of Benin, the thriving cocoa industry in the southwest, all disappeared. The 1967 coup and subsequent counter-coups deepened ethnic divisions. Each side counted casualties as justification for outrage. Culturally, economically, and religiously, the dynamics of us versus them became embedded in the Nigerian psyche. And now, in the age of digital media, these ethnic and religious divisions are amplified by separatist groups and politicians, making it harder than ever to see the full picture. In October 2025, President Trump's allegations of Christian genocide exposed Nigeria's deep-seated religious and ethnic divides. There are multiple identities here triggered by the political economy. Conflicts here are identity-based and motivated by struggle for resources and power.
Well, it's quite unfortunate that this kind of thing is happening in this country. Our government have allowed this thing to degenerate to this situation. These things are happening. There is a saying that if you throw a stone into a market square, you never can tell whom it be hot. When this thing started, if the Nigerian government would have confronted this issue of insecurity earlier on, it would have not have, degenerated to this situation. If you look at the kind of killings across Nigeria, they kill both Christians and Muslims. In the north, people like us who grew up in Burma, primary school, secondary school, in the mix of Muslims, and we're able to live together. But unfortunately, when we started this 1999 democracy up to this period, politicians have destroyed this country with their various antics. Well, for the position of Trump, if Trump had said, based his arguments on insecurity in Nigeria, it would have just been the best, so that they can go ahead and deal with these people. As it is today, you and I, we are a Muslim and a Christian. We cannot carry arms and fight ourselves. But the bad ones are everyone have bad people among ourselves. And again, if you look at the kind of killings, particularly in the Middle Belt, in Plateau, in Benue, at a point, autumn have to come up with a world press, a burial ceremony, something like that. That the world over, look at corpses, look at dead bodies. People attack people in their own, in their sleep, kill them, slaughter them. That wasn't even enough for them. When they carry the dead ones to go and bury, as they gather for the burial, people still go there to kill people. Go to some communities in Plateau State today. Can I call them bandits or whoever they are? They have chased the indigenous communities and they are settling there right there now as I speak. So people have lost their ancestral homes.
I heard about the genocide allegation where Trump was talking about sending a soldier to prevent what is happening in the country. Yes, to me as a person, I'm fully in support of that because from many years ago, Christians particularly have been suffer of innocent death that you are not aware of. Then what are we doing about the killing in Nigeria? Then we should wake up to that. Stop the killing. Christians are dying, Muslims are dying. And it's on record that in Casino of recent, people went to the mosque and killed people. Innocent people praying, they killed them. Ondo or also, they went into the church, kill worshippers. Who are these people? For me, I know it's not our Nigerian Fulani. Our Nigerian Fulani, then that we know them, they are very peaceful. The Hausas are peaceful, the Yorubas are peaceful, the Igbos are peaceful. These jihadists, I'm sure they came in from Mauritania, whatever Muslim country, to start causing problems here. What has our government done about it? People are dying in Zamfara, people are dying in Maduguri, people are dying all over. What has our government wake up to do about it? That is the problem.
Ina ji. Kuma amma ni abin da nake tunani kamar Najeriya ita ma ƙasa ne mai cin gashin kanta. Kuma shi wannan maganar da yake faɗa in kika duba da yanayin yadda muke zaune da Kiristoci a nan Najeriya, kowa ya san ana kashe musulmai, ana kashe Kirista. Su kansu Kiristocin Arewa ya kamata a ce su duba wannan magana. Akwai abin duba a cikinta. Sakamakon in kika lura da abubuwan da suke faruwa a Zamfara, abubuwan da suke faruwa a irin Katsina, Batsari local government da sauran local government duka abubuwan da suke faruwa. Ana kisa to amma mu matsalar mutanenmu suna da kamar rashin yadda da irin kamar social media. Inda a ce suna ɗaukan hoto, suna posting, suna waye, suna sawa a social media, dole mutane na su san wannan abu.
Shugaban ƙasar Amerika, wannan zalunci ne kawai irin nasu. Mu Najeriya muna zaman lafiya tsakanin mu da Kiristoci mu. Sai dai abin da ba rasa ba siyasa yana shiga ciki. Amma maganan kashe-kashe mu ba ma kashe junanmu. In ma dai kashe-kashe da ya arewa ake kashe-kashe. Musulmai kuma ake kashewa. Wace ƙasa ce ta taɓa fitowa ta yi magana akan abin da ake faruwa a arewa wanda duk duniya ba wanda ba su sani ba yanzu nan. Bandits suna nan. Ba dare ba rana, Boko Haram suna nan. Duk suna yankin arewa ne. A wani yanki suke a kudu?
Wa ake tabawa a kudu?
To me, it's just a political charade, it's just a political gimmick that is actually being used by the American president, because you can't just come into a sovereign country like Nigeria. Even though America is powerful, America has succeeded in invading places like Iraq, Libya, Cuba, Cambodia, and some other countries in the world. But Nigeria, they have to understand that what they are seeing behind the scene is not exactly what is happening in Nigeria. Between the Christian and Muslim, we are living peacefully in Nigeria. And in my state, if you go to Gombe, especially Gombe South, there's a kind of like a relationship that normally used to take place. A Christian can marry a Muslim can marry a Christian.
Based on the figures that we calculated, 9,438 Nigerians have been killed from January to the end of October 2025. An average of about 1,000 Nigerians are being killed. Monthly, you divide that 9,400 source by 10. But the good thing is that from around May, we started seeing a reduction. The peak period was in April 2025, when we recorded about 1,300 deaths. But then since then, the numbers have been dropping. The figure for October was 600 deaths. So when you compare to the 1,300, that's almost about a 50% reduction. So it appears that whatever the government is doing, it's leading to a reduction in the fatality rate. Now, when we look at abduction, which is the other metrics that we measure, abduction too is at about 6,000, which means an average of about 500 plus every month from January to the end of October. So clearly, Nigeria is among the top 5 countries that are security challenged globally. What is concerning regarding Trump's threat is the fact that he singled out Christians. Now, if you look at the proportion of Christians and Muslims in Nigeria, some would argue that it's 60-50. Others would even tell you because of the cultural factors that there are more Muslims than Christians. So somebody would say 60-40. So even if you pick the most conservative proportion, which is 60-50, and you now use that 9,400 that I mentioned, it would now mean probably about 4,500 Christians were killed, and then 4,500 Muslims were killed. But then it's not that simple, in the sense that when we broke down the figure, this 9,500, the state that was most affected was Borno State. And if you look at the proportion of Muslims in Borno State compared to the proportions of Christians, it's about 80% Muslims for 20% Christians. And I would justify this. There are 27 local governments in Borno, 22 of which are predominantly Muslims, while about 5 are Christian dominated. And that's how we came to this proportion of 80 Muslims, 20% Christians. So, which means if you pick the most affected states like Borno, Zamfara, Katsina, and then of course you go to Benue, Plateau, Niger, Kaduna, you find out that most of the states that are worst affected are Muslim states, which would now lead into the logical conclusion that more Muslims are affected than Christians. And it's now shocking, actually, and surprising that Trump will now selectively indicate that Christians are being targeted, when the reality is that both faiths are being affected.
So, what is really going on in Nigeria? A far more complex story of ethnic and religious divisions amidst struggles for scarce resources that goes deeper beyond the headlines you see.